Tonight, cracking open the door, more states join others across the country.
This cannot be purely a medical decision.
In a hesitant reopening of their economies.
We have to be smart, because if you are not smart, you will see that infection rate go right back to where it was.
As the COVID-19 death toll crosses the 55,000 mark.
Social distancing will be with us through the summer.
The distance to the finish line for beating the coronavirus months away. Plus, where in the world is Kim Jong-un? The speculation surrounding the North Korean dictator's well-being. And the Pope's blessing for those struggling economically amid the pandemic. All this and more tonight on Faith Nation. More states slowly reopening. Welcome to Faith Nation. I'm Jenna Browder. This as coronavirus deaths continue to climb in the U.S. and tonight infections nearing 1 million. So is it too soon? That is where we begin as thousands of businesses open their doors once again. CBN White House correspondent Ben Kennedy has our top story. Ben?
Jenna, as you were talking about, more than a dozen states are back to business this week at various levels. Restaurants, they too have new guidelines for dine-in, 6 or less people per table. Employees must wear masks, have temperature checks, and of course, social distancing guidelines is in effect everywhere.
6 states, Arkansas, Colorado, Minnesota, Mississippi, Montana, and Tennessee all launched limited reopenings today.
This was something, like I said, hit our community like a bomb when it hit. And people went down one after another. It's scary to me, and I said something to some of the people, why you don't have masks on.
Fowler lives in Georgia, which has lifted restrictions from places like barbershops, gyms, theaters, and now dine-in restaurants. Alaska, South Carolina, and Oklahoma are also getting back to business. States like Maryland, though, put the brakes on plans after seeing its deadliest day over the weekend.
I want to get our economy back open just as soon as we can, but I want to do so in a safe way.
Michigan also extended its stay-at-home order to mid-May.
We know that no one wants a second wave. It would be devastating for the health of our people and for our economy. And so we've got to be really smart as we re-engage.
We have to be smart, because if you are not smart, you will see that infection rate go right back to where it was. We'll be right back to where we were.
New York Governor Cuomo announced a plan to reopen without setting a date as deaths there approach 17,000. Dr. Deborah Burke says social distancing will be with us through the summer. Also returning to work are first responders and essential employees who recovered from COVID-19.
And that was the scariest thing for me, returning back to work. I'm like, I don't want to get sick again, but it's like, this is my job, so I had to.
Now, while more than 100,000 people have recovered from COVID-19 right here in the country, the big question does remain is, can you get infected again? Well, Dr. Anthony Fauci says that if you've had it, there's a 99% chance that you cannot catch it again. Jenna?
All right, that is good news. Ben Kennedy, thank you very much. Well, as states begin to lift stay-at-home orders, some medical professionals say it's time to lift all near-total lockdowns. Here with us now is Dr. Scott Atlas, a senior fellow at Stanford University's Hoover Institution and the former chief of neuroradiology at Stanford University Medical Center. Dr. Atlas, good to have you. Thank you for joining us. We see several states lifting these stay-at-home orders. Why do you feel more should follow suit?
Well, I mean, there's a lot we have learned since the original, hypothetical projections, and we need to rely on that evidence in what we know. What we know is that the risk of dying is extremely low, far lower than what was originally thought. And it's very targeted to certain groups. We know that we can alleviate and limit hospital overcrowding by protecting the most vulnerable people. We also know that the single focus on COVID-19 has created missing critical medical care. And when we're talking about critical care, we're talking about life-saving care for chemotherapy, various biopsies of cancers, acute stroke patients, organ transplants, all kinds of very serious things. And then fourth, We know from decades of virology and immunology literature and from experience with other viruses, including viruses in this family, coronaviruses, that when you do total lockdown and complete isolation, you are delaying and preventing population immunity from developing.
You mentioned protecting the most vulnerable. We know that older people and those with underlying conditions are more at risk. How can we protect them specifically if we do lift the stay-at-home orders?
Well, I'm talking about a targeted policy. And what that means is that, number one, we have strict regulation of access and sort of interaction with nursing home residents. They are the most vulnerable, and we not only have a scientific, we have a moral obligation to protect them, and that's a population that we already have restricted access to. We also need to, advise the population who deal with, live with, or work with people who are older and have underlying chronic diseases about strict hand washing and some social distancing guidelines. But we also need to recognize very clearly that people who are young have no risk, no serious risk of a serious illness, of hospitalization or death. And some of these regulations are ridiculous, really, if you use the evidence that we have.
Yeah. Talk to us, Dr. Atlas, about population immunity. Is this near total isolation actually prolonging the spread?
Well, I think you can make that case because population immunity means what scientists call herd immunity, which is based on the fact that the way that people get diseases and then respond is they generate their own antibodies. And generally speaking, antibodies prevent a reinfection. And when you have low-risk groups get infection and then get their own antibodies, they end up with themselves setting up obstacles to the network of infection. And this is the way that populations protect the most vulnerable. That is the exact theory used to employ widespread immunization, is to protect the vulnerable by helping with immunity in this way. And by the way, I want to point out that is exactly the thinking underlying the excitement about transfusing people with serum from patients who have already had the disease. They have their own antibodies, and the idea is transferring their antibodies, which are thought to be protective, to people to prevent or help treat the vulnerable people. These kinds of clinical trials are ongoing right now, but this is basic virology and immunology. Just because we don't know 100% about this virus does not mean we throw out everything we do know about virology and immunology that's been established for decades. It would be unexpected that antibodies are not protective.
Yeah, it has a lot of people very hopeful. So finally, Dr. Birx with the White House Coronavirus Task Force says social distancing will be in place through this summer. What are your thoughts on that?
I think it depends what she really means. There will be certainly some social distancing, but the social distancing must be targeted using evidence and basically logic and common sense to the people who are vulnerable. And so social distancing is very important to keep the vulnerable safe. But, social distancing rules for people who are in their 20s and otherwise healthy and somehow 6-foot social distancing for these people, I'm not so sure there's a lot of evidence for that.
All right. Dr. Scott Atlas with Stanford University's Hoover Institution, thank you very much. Good to see you today.
Okay, thanks for having me.
Meanwhile, where is North Korean dictator Kim Jong-un? Conflicting reports are fueling increased speculation over whether he is alive. And now North Korean media outlets are pointing to a thank you note from Kim as proof of his good health and well-being. After missing the 108th birthday celebration of his grandfather on April 15th, reports have swirled over the fate of the young leader. Kim has not been seen in public since April 11th. Reports say he went in for heart surgery that next day. South Korean officials, for their part, maintain the strongman to the north is alive and well. And with that, we want to bring in David Maxwell, Senior Fellow with the Foundation for Defense of Democracies. David, good to have you. Thank you for being with us this evening. So the world wants to know, where is Kim Jong-un?
Well, I imagine he's somewhere inside North Korea. That's about as close as we can be sure. And North Korea is the hardest target what the intelligence professionals call it, because it is such a closed society. And of course, Kim Jong-un's health, his location, everything about him is really a state secret. And so we have heard speculation about a number of scenarios. He could have had a bad outcome from a heart operation. He could have been injured in a military accident, which is one of the more recent reports. He could have left Pyongyang because he wants to stay away from those who are perhaps infected with the coronavirus. And he could be in Wonsan, where he grew up much of the time when he was in North Korea as a child, and where he often goes to prepare for military tests and operations. And he could be just staying there, avoiding Pyongyang and preparing for another missile and rocket test.
Yeah. So President Trump, he's called these reports fake news. And South Korea also maintaining that Kim is still alive. What is behind these reports claiming his death?
Well, it is rumor intelligence, and there are lots of rumors abound. And I think that although I think we have to take them with a grain of salt, but we also have to take them seriously, because even though North Korea is such a closed society, there are 6.5 million smartphones inside North Korea. And although they can only communicate within North Korea, they are able to communicate with the outside world. And so information does get out. And it's possible that these are rumors, but there's also a possibility that there could be truth. I mean, we should look at the fact Kim Jong-un's health is not perfect. He is obese. He's got diabetes. He has gout. He's thought to have a heart condition, which is very likely as a smoker and the way he lives his life. So, his health problems are a real possibility. And so we have to take that seriously. And of course, we have to really take it seriously because there is no designated succession mechanism inside North Korea. And if he were to die, the question is what happens next? And that's why we must be very watchful to what's going on inside North Korea.
Well, that brings up a great point. There's a lot of talk around his sister. Is she in a position to become her brother's successor?
Well, it appears that in recent times, she has been elevated in stature. We know from talking to defectors that she is the one person that he trusts the most inside North Korea. I mean, there is no trust within North Korea. The entire system is designed to protect Kim Jong-un alone from any kind of resistance and coup. But he does trust his sister. And of course, on April 11th, the last act that he was where he was seen, she was elevated to an alternate member of the Politburo. She's long been the deputy head of the Propaganda and Agitation Department. In March, for the first time, she issued official statements in her name. So it looks like, we can interpret that she may be in a position where she's been being groomed to succeed him. But we don't know if there's been a succession designation. And without that, the future is uncertain. And of course, she is a woman. And although South Korea has had a woman president, North Korean culture is really male dominated. And so the question is out whether or not she would be acceptable. Although we know she is a tough leader, she's been sanctioned for her brutal human rights, overseeing executions. And so if she does come to power, I think we can see her act just like her brother, where she will have brutal purges to consolidate her power and rule with an iron hand.
Yeah. All right, David Maxwell with the Foundation for Defense of Democracies. Thank you so much. Have a good evening.
Thank you. Good night.
Well, Joe Biden says the COVID-19 stimulus plan is not enough. Coming up, the Democratic presidential nominee wants something bigger and more progressive. Our Faith Nation political panel weighs in.
Life is better with a good night's sleep. Get your free DVD or booklet of Protect Your Sleep. as the world watches from the outside.
It's a big diplomatic tug-of-war here in the Middle East.
Go inside the story with Jerusalem Dateline.
Israeli archaeologists are talking about a discovery that could change the thinking about the Temple Mount.
Join CBN Jerusalem Bureau Chief Chris Mitchell and get the biblical perspective on the events shaping the world.
What starts in Israel then ends up going to other places.
Watch Jerusalem Dateline, Friday night at 9:30 on the CBN News Channel.
Life. It's meant to be lived fully. Jesus said it. I came to give you life. Life to the fullest. Life in your family. Life in your finances. Life in your body, mind, and spirit. Life in your everyday. At CBN.com, we're taking what Jesus said seriously. We're here to help you discover life. Life. Live it fully. CBN.com.
In a fiery interview with Politico over the weekend, Joe Biden struck a noticeably more progressive tone, talking about the economic stimulus plan he would like to see put in place. Biden wants something bigger than the $1 trillion CARES Act. He says one of the ways out of this economic crisis is through a $1 trillion infrastructure program to create new American jobs. That would also call for environmental programs like investing in light rail and electric vehicle chargers. Biden also says there is a need to for massive aid for states and local governments and strict oversight to ensure big banks and businesses aren't drying up all of the aid before small businesses have a shot at it. And here now for our Faith Nation political panel, CBN Chief Political Analyst David Brody. David, what do you make of Joe Biden's talk of bigger, more progressive stimulus plan?
Well, Jenna, Joe Biden has made a decision. He's going big and progressive, or he's going home. So that's what he's deciding. We've talked all along about, is he going to track to the middle, or is he going to get more progressive because he needs the Bernie folks along for the ride? And that's clearly what he's calculating and deciding to do. We'll probably even see more of this as time goes on. And so I think Joe Biden has revealed his general election strategy in this interview.
Yeah. David, what about his search for a running mate for a vice president? He recently said that he would, pick Michelle Obama in a heartbeat if he could.
Yeah, if he could. The problem is that, and he also said in that interview, the problem is that Michelle Obama probably doesn't want anything to do with the White House a second time here in the future. So I don't think it's going to happen. Now, having said that, look, you put Michelle Obama on that ticket with Joe Biden, that could potentially clinch you the White House. Because remember, it's all about energy. And Michelle Obama does bring that in the Democrat Party. Having said that, we'll see about the VP pick. Wouldn't be surprised if Elizabeth Warren is one of the finalists, and don't rule out Stacey Abrams, the former Georgia gubernatorial candidate.
Yeah, also talk of Amy Klobuchar, so we'll see. The Wall Street Journal, David, is out with a piece about the return of big government in the age of coronavirus. David, though, a lot of people are wondering if it was ever gone.
Right. No, it was really never gone. I mean, just check in with Woodrow Wilson and check in as we move on through the ages there in terms of the presidents and FDR and all of that. But look, we are in a much different scenario today. We have a lot of folks trusting the government. I'm not going to suggest they're saying that the government is their God, because there are many evangelicals that are listening to those guidelines. But the truth of the matter is we have a lot more folks having to rely on trusting the government, and therefore it's become bigger in our lives. Let's face it. Do you really want to go out right now until the government, till the state says it's okay to go out? I think a lot of people are waiting until that happens. And so there's something in there that will have to be discussed in some sort of philosophical lecture hall across the country.
Yeah, this has definitely changed the way things work, that's for sure. Well, today's White House coronavirus briefing, it was canceled, David, and then it was rescheduled, put back on the schedule. Just a few seconds left here. But what's the White House strategy here? And are we going to see these coronavirus briefings start to taper off?
Yeah, we're definitely going to see him start to taper off. You know, the media has this narrative that Donald Trump, as a matter of fact, Wolf Blitzer called him chicken the other day, that Donald Trump is chicken. Donald Trump chicken? Give me a break. He's the anti-chicken, if anything. No, he's not chicken. He can deal with the media. He's been punching him in the face. Sorry, I said it, but punching him in the face since he started being president. So this has nothing to do with that. The bottom line here is that even though the president has a bully pulpit, this media has a very big bully pulpit too, because they're an echo chamber. And when they all come together, that is a pretty intimidating factor. And Trump feels like, hey, why even fight this if they're going to just spread what he believes are lies and falsehoods?
David Brody, CBN's chief political analyst. Thanks, David. Good to see you.
Thanks, Jenna.
Up next, how the mission aboard this hospital ship in New York is shifting to fight the war on COVID-19.
On October 1st, 1961, history was made when a tiny station began transmitting the first signals of the Christian Broadcasting Network.
CBN, the Christian Broadcasting Network.
And now, a new era has begun with the all-new CBN News Channel.
Just moments ago, the Iron Dome intercepted an incoming rocket right on the Gaza border.
Administering in this area, spiritual warfare is definitely involved.
A 24/7 news network, bringing you the news you want from a source you can trust.
In Kenya, 40% of the medical services are actually provided by these Christian hospitals.
Let's talk about the economy.
Believers here are joining together to win people to Jesus Christ.
All your favorite shows now in one place. Go to CBNNewsChannel.com to find out how to get the CBN News Channel on your TV all day, every day. CBN News. Life is better with a good night's sleep. Get your free DVD or booklet of Protect Your Sleep today.
Life. It's meant to be lived fully. Jesus said it. I came to give you life. Life to the fullest. Life in your family. Life in your finances. Life in your body, mind, and spirit. Life in your everyday. At CBN.com, we're taking what Jesus said seriously. We're here to help you discover life. Life. Live it fully. CBN.com.
Tonight, after nearly a month, the USNS Comfort is preparing to leave New York City, the floating hospital's original mission to relieve pressure on COVID-strained hospitals. Once it arrived, though, crew members got an unexpected request. CBN National Security Correspondent Eric Phillips joins us with the details. Eric?
Well, Jenna, when the Comfort left Norfolk, it was expected to treat COVID-negative patients to make room in local hospitals for those testing positive. Well, things changed, and soon the crew learned they'd be treating both negative and positive patients, leading to some significant adjustments.
This is a look inside the intensive care aboard the Comfort during its mission in New York. Workflow picked up when crew members learned they'd be treating coronavirus patients.
The switching to that of all comers or both COVID negative and COVID positive was a little taxing for some at first. Again, because we all watch the media, we see what's going on television, and the concerns and the issues that were going on around the country. In the Navy, we're very adaptable and we're good at change. So we were able to make a lot of those, necessary adjustments to what we were doing very quickly.
Including new protocols for moving patients on, off, and around the ship. Not to mention new standards for protecting the crew against the spread of the disease. Even still,
we had a couple of our crew members that also became COVID positive aboard the ship. So we were able to separate them, care for them, get them what they needed, and they've actually returned to duty. So that relieved a lot of that stress and anxiety that some of the crew may have had.
Of the ship's 180 patients, 70 to 80% were COVID positive. For some, like native New Yorker Malcolm Burtz, the job was personal.
My grandmother's in Yonkers, which is highly affected. I think about it often, just being so close yet so far.
And though the staff is built for combat, fighting this invisible enemy became overwhelming at times, with as many as 25 patients on ventilators and others on dialysis while needing to perform surgeries on board.
It happened all at once. It's something new. It challenged us from the sheer volume and the realization that we don't have a good treatment protocol for it yet. It is frustrating, but it's a privilege to care for people, even if you don't have tools that you know can fix them. What they really need is care.
We really feel that we have made an impact to the city and the people of New York and New Jersey.
And no one would argue with that. And with all patients now released from the ship, the USNS Comfort is expected to head back to Norfolk by the end of the week. More Faith Nation when we return. Stay with us.
Life is better with a good night's sleep. Get your free DVD or booklet of Protect Your Sleep today.
I'm Ephraim Graham, and this is Studio 5. Cruise with me as I discover the good things happening in the world of music, sports, television, and movies.
The fact that Ryan Coogler was going to be directing the film, I knew that something special was going to happen.
We'll chat with artists at the forefront of entertainment and explore the connection between popular culture and faith.
I asked my pastor, I said, well, does that mean I'm supposed to be a preacher? He says, well, no, you already have a pulpit.
Watch Studio 5, Wednesday night at 9:30.
Remember for a moment what it was like to be a child. You believed every story you were told. You saw a world full of endless possibilities. What stories will the world's orphaned and at-risk children believe? We believe the Bible tells the only story truly worth believing. We believe that every child should have the opportunity to dream, the chance to take challenges and turn them into possibilities, the chance to stand on the promises of God, to recognize their place in the greatest story ever told. They have their whole lives ahead of them. Theirs is a world of endless possibilities. They are looking for a story to believe. We will tell them that story. Will you join us?
Finally tonight, a prayer and a word of encouragement from the Pope. This weekend he held morning mass from his Santa Marta residence.
Preghiamo oggi in questa messa per tutte le persone che
In solidarity, Pope Francis said a prayer for those who are alone or struggling to support their families. And he encouraged all the faithful to continue in prayer for them and each other. Well, that is going to do it for Faith Nation this evening. Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you back here tomorrow.